We have him live, and he is in Brazil, and he is covering the Eagles for PHLY and PHLY Eagles. And he joins us live right now. What's up, Zach?
John, great to see you. Congratulations on the show. Pumped that you're part of PHLY. I've been trying to get to the right backdrop here so your audience can see Sao Paulo. This could be a building on Chestnut Street for all you know, but I promise you I am in Sao Paulo.
You're in Sao Paulo. There's been a lot made of the safety and security of the team and fans, and it's a dangerous city to be in. Would you say that's been exaggerated? I know you only got there yesterday, so you haven't been there. I know some
Yeah.
other people have been there for an extended period of time. What are people saying, and what's the atmosphere like?
Yeah, I heard so much of that going into it, right? I don't know if it was scare tactic or whatnot. The reality is there's 22 million people in the Sao Paulo area. Like it is huge. That's my number one big takeaway is it's not like there's a city center. It is huge. So I imagine that there are parts here where I got to be careful in and all the normal warnings of like, your don't have your phone out, your wedding band, things like that. But I got to say, in my 24 hours, I haven't been gallivanting around town, but I haven't. It hasn't been anything that's been alarming thus far. If we catch up tomorrow, I might have more for you then. I'm going to the stadium today, so I'll see more of the town today.
Yeah, I saw you. I saw you tweeted this morning a picture. I guess it was from your hotel room. A magnificent view. This amazing bridge that was like
Yeah.
it was in the picture. Now, did you have to send that to your wife or somebody to tweet it
Yes.
out?
Yeah, let's be clear in case the Brazilian government's watching your show right now. I did not tweet that. I sent that picture to my wife. I wish that were my hotel room. I went to the top floor of the hotel where they have a
Oh,
view to get that to show Sao Paulo. My hotel room is behind me. You can see someone's office. That's about it.
right.
But yeah, it is. I did not tweet that out. I sent that to my wife. She's handling my account.
Good. You definitely need help with your social media. You got a lot going on there. Are there Eagles fans all over the place, Zach?
On my flight down, so I flew Philly to Miami, Miami to Sao Paulo on a Tuesday night. So you're talking 3 days before the game. Eagles fans on the flight, without a doubt. There are going to be. I keep hearing from fans who are going to be down here now. The stadium capacity is a little under 50,000, and a lot of the people going are Brazilian people, right? So I don't think it's going to be like an Eagles home game, where they can buy out all the tickets to Washington or Los Angeles. But I definitely have seen Eagles fans making the trek to South America.
Because you know how it is. I wasn't in London, but it seemed like that Eagles fans stick out like a sore thumb, and there was a ton of them. They're gonna blend it a little bit more. It seems like in this on this trip.
Yeah, yeah. Now I was at that London trip. A, there are more tickets. B, there are more London games, right?
Right.
And so my understanding is that a big part of them coming here was to bring football to Brazil, and most of the audience, or I'm sure most of the attendants, are going to be Brazilian football fans. But having been on the beat for 13 years, every road game during these 13 years, Eagles fans do stick out like a sore thumb in a good way, right? I mean, they're not wallflowers. They're not they're not quiet during the game. They're not quiet on the
Right.
streets. So I imagine Eagles fans are going to stick out here in Sao Paulo.
All right, so practice. You were nice enough to jump on because you gotta head out on the bus. So when is practice today? Practice is it's an hour difference. So practice is an hour in an
Yeah,
hour and a half or in 2 hours.
yeah. So practice is 1:30
Oh, okay.
p.m. local time, so 12:30 Eastern time. Nick Sirianni will speak at 12 Eastern time. Jalen Hurts and a few others after the walkthrough. The reason I need to head out is traffic here is notoriously bad. It's going to take me about an hour and a half to get to the stadium. Tomorrow, the NFL, I'm on all the NFL shuttles. I'm not like renting a car here, but the NFL is putting 2.5 hours in to get to the stadium. I was talking to like some Eagles officials this past week. It's the same thing for them. They're putting a lot of time in. They get to the stadium from the stadium. But yeah, practice is 1:30 local time, 12:30 Eastern time.
How far of a if there was no traffic, how far away is the stadium? Do you know?
Yeah, from where I am, it's about 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
Where the Eagles are, I think the Eagles are staying a little closer to the airport. I think it's about 30 minutes from the Eagles, but there's, in doing my pre-trip work on Sao Paulo, it's always rush hour here.
Right.
So there's always gonna be traffic.
22 million is a lot of people. All right, let's get to some game stuff here. I don't know if you were surprised, but Devin White, all of a sudden he's injured and he's not traveling and he's not going to play. Did he just popped up on the injured list, right? Did this take you by surprise? Did you know that there was an injury that was potentially going to keep him out of the game?
It took me by surprise that he didn't travel with the team. That the injury is keeping him out. That had not been the case earlier this week in practice per se. As far as his role, you had heard whispers that like Nakobe Dean was coming on. Nakobe Dean played real well those last 2-3 weeks, and I'll say Devin White, outside of the name appeal, I don't think he played poorly. I don't think he distinguished himself per se, right? And Nakobe, I thought Nakobe's last week of training camp was the best I've seen him play in his 3 years here. That said, the Devin White news did take me by surprise because I had no indication before this that he wasn't going to travel.
So I saw a number of people, I believe, including you, had tweeted out, and I saw an Albert Breer tweet who said that he said there were murmurs that the Eagles could trade Devin White before the cutdown. Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean were both really good in camp. So White missing the opener won't help his case for a big role in the defense. Would he have not started in this game if he was healthy?
It's a real good question. I can't report that. My former colleague at the Inquirer, Jeff McClain, he reported that Dean would have started regardless. I could certainly see that having been the case because, like I said there, and as Albert said, like Dean really came on during that last week of camp, and I think Dean and Devin White kind of play more the same position, but I think it would be I think it would be foolish for the Eagles to cut him. And we'll see what happens with the injury. My perspective on this is the Eagles don't have a particularly good linebacker core, right? And they haven't in the past. And we've seen times in the past where they've had a guy start 2-3 weeks and they have to make a change, right? I
Right.
mean, I used to make a joke with TJ Edwards. Every year it was like he wasn't given the starting job and he'd become the starter at some point.
Yeah.
Last year there was that game against Washington. Nicholas Morrow had 3 sacks. He didn't start the season as the starter. He got replaced 3 weeks later
Right.
after the 3-sack game. So point is that Devin White has been a high caliber player in the league, regressed last year for sure. But I'm not ruling out him contributing to the Eagles this year.
At some point, they're probably going to need him. It's great what you're hearing about Nakobe Dean. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. So once the real
Yeah.
games start tomorrow, we'll see what he does. But if he has another injury issue, like you had said, Eagles were efficient on practice squads last year,
Yeah.
looking for starters. So it's good to at least have a guy that has experience and has played at a high level at some point.
Absolutely. Like, Nakobe Dean, and I liked Nakobe Dean coming out of Georgia. I was bullish on him going into last season, and I liked the way he played this summer. He hasn't proven it in the NFL during 2 years, and I think he would tell you that. Zach Bond has not been a starting, inside linebacker during his 4-year NFL career. He's mostly been like a special teams guy, edge / inside hybrid player. Devin White's the most experienced player that they have there, and he does have athletic tools. So yeah, I'm not one of these people who are saying like I'll move on from him. I actually think Devin White can have a role this year.
You mentioned Zach Bond. As somebody that watches the preseason games, but wasn't paying as close attention to training camp maybe than I have in a couple of other years. What should we expect from Bond? What kind of a player he is? Who does he remind you of? Who's a good comp for a Zach Bond?
It's a really good question because I think he was a little surprised too that he was an inside linebacker. I think when he signed here, he thought he was going to be more of an edge rusher. The comp that I heard when he came here was Andrew Van Ginkel. Andrew Van Ginkel, who was really productive for Vic Fangio last year in Miami, got a contract with the Vikings and has like that versatility. Both went to Wisconsin, both played the same role at Wisconsin. For Eagles fans who aren't as familiar with Zach Bond, aside from the fact that he has great initials, I would say that what really jumps out to me is like he's a physical player, and he has that edge rush background playing on the inside. He has more size certainly than your N'Kobe Dean, Jeremiah Trotter Juniors, right? I mean, he's a legit like 6'2", 240. He can move decently. But the thing that I kept hearing, and I saw it in practice, but talking to the coaches about this and other players, like his toughness, that's what comes through.
Hmm. Um, Start of the show, I had mentioned the confidence that I had in this team this year, and the talent on the offense. There's no doubt about. We'll see what happens with the offensive line if they can get back to kind of the form that we thought or we expect them to be year after year. But Kellen Moore, they brought in Vic Fangio, and I think Fangio is going to be an upgrade, obviously, over what they had before. But this is a players' league. And if you don't have talent, you can be a great coordinator. You're only going to be able to get so much out of those players. And I think Fangio is going to do that. But Kellen Moore, to me, was such a great under the radar almost hire by the Eagles just because they have everything you're looking for on offense. Now it's a matter of, all right, what can we do to get them back to the 2022 level? What can we do to get Jalen Hurts back to 2022? What is your impression of Kellen Moore so far? And talking to the players and getting a sense what they think, does it feel different as far as the players and the offense and everything else compared to what you were watching last year?
Yeah, I don't think they showed much of anything during, well, obviously the preseason, but even in training camp, they kept a lot closer to the vest. And I think for me, for you, for the fans, there is going to be a noticeable difference in terms of the way the offense looks before the snap. I think some of the route concepts. I think you'll see less of a dependency on the deep ball. I think you'll see more of the short and intermediate game incorporated. A big thing we keep hearing is they'll have more answers at the line of scrimmage for the blitz. Certainly, pre-snap motion is going to be featured far more than it's been in the past. And it's not just motion; you'll see shifts and formations, right? And I think too, you're going to see these receivers move around. Like if I'm giving you a prediction for this year, I think Devontae Smith is going to have a really big year relative. Now he's been 1,000-yard receiver back-to-back years. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's if he's a 100-catch player this year, because I think the way they use him, the volume that they're going to get him, I'm expecting a big year from Devontae Smith.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people actually saying that maybe he becomes more of wide receiver 1A or 1. And if you look at some of the bets, the over-unders or whatever, it seems like that people aren't expecting as much out of A.J. Brown this year, in large part to Saquon Barkley. Because, Zach, we know that the dynamic he brings in the running and the passing game as a receiver. So if he's going to get 500 yards receiving or something like that, you're taking the yards from somewhere, right? So potentially AJ comes back down to earth a little bit. It never feels like Dallas Goedert is utilized properly in the passing offense. So Kellen Moore and Jalen are going to have a lot of options in this passing game. How much running how much of a run focus do you think that Kellen Moore will have in this offense? Because I've always contended that this team is better when they can run the ball, and they really need to play off of the run rather than really what most teams do, which is play off of the pass.
Yeah, I do think you're going to see them. I do think you'll see them run the ball. And the reason I hesitated there is because I think the offense could look different on a week-to-week basis. When you kind of pick your head up at the end of the season, if they get the volume of plays that they're hoping for, then everyone's going to get their touches. And when I say everyone, I should say Saquon, AJ, Devontae, and Dallas. I don't think your Jahan Dotsons, your Will Shipley's, Kenny Gainwell's, you might see some reports like Gainwell's going to have a role in this offense. I'm kind of skeptical that outside of the big three, the big four, if you will, there's going to be the ball to go around. I think this is going to be like one of those NBA teams where you look at the stats after the game and it's the same 3-4 guys who are getting up all the shots. So I to answer your question, I do think they're going to run the ball. They paid Saquon Barkley $13 million a year to be a major piece of this offense. He's not a vanity signing for them. I mean, he's going to be here for 2 years, and I think they're going to do everything they can to run the wheels off, if you will, for like those 2 years. Like, I think we'll see what happens year 3 of the deal, but I think this year and next year, Saquon is going to be a 275, 300 touch player for the Eagles.
Zach Berman's live in Sao Paulo, Brazil, as the game is tomorrow night. And we haven't actually talked about the game. So I'm not going to ask for your prediction, but your confidence level the day before the game going in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles are good, and I think they're healthy going in this game. Offensively, they're loaded. Now, the last time I saw the Packers, they were like a juggernaut in the playoffs, right? I mean, they stuck it to the Cowboys. They went toe to toe with the Niners. So this is a real tough game, and I don't have a feel for this Packers defense right now. They replaced their coordinator, Jeff Halfley. They brought in Jeff Halfley, replaced the coordinator from last year. They have some different pieces. Josh Jacobs in there. Jordan Love's taking a step up here. But I look at the Eagles and I say, like, they're gonna be a really difficult team to stop. And so I feel good about the Eagles offense going into this game. My concern is how, like, the reason Vic Fangio's here from my perspective is to raise the baseline of the defense. Is like Vic Fangio, he doesn't need to have a top 10 defense. They can't have a bottom 10 defense with Vic
Right.
Fangio. But I'm worried. I'd be a little worried if I were an Eagles fan about this matchup with Eagles defense against them. In particular, the middle of the field. I think Matt LaFleur is really going to try to take advantage of the Eagles in the middle of the field. The one player, he doesn't get a lot of attention, but I would watch out for Packers tight end Luke Musgrave, because we talked about the tight ends at the start of the show here, or the start of this hit. Or I'm sorry, we talked about the linebackers. I'm very curious to see Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean in coverage. And I think that's where the Packers are going to try to beat the Eagles, is the middle of the field.